welcome to Wild, Wacky, Wonderful Humans. This is the podcast that celebrates the quirks, the courage, and the brilliance of being human. I'm your host, Janine Tracy, transformational coach and curious explorer. Let's dive in and uncover the magic of being wonderfully human. Today's incredible guest is Judy Julin, a visionary in education, child development, personal transformation. She's had over 30 years of experience as an entrepreneur, an educator, and a publisher of a parenting magazine, Inspired Parenting. Judy has produced global learning events, summits. She's earned recognition in the Wall Street Journal, the London Times, and even CBS. She has shared the stage with Deepak Chopra, and she's appeared on screen with Olivia Newton-John. Wow. What makes Judy's story truly extraordinary is her personal journey. Her journey took her from a spontaneous spiritual awakening to a Hollywood psychiatric ward and back to a life of purpose and deep wisdom. In this episode, she takes us through the pivotal moment that changed everything. She shares how heartbreak cracked her open, and this catapulted her into a surreal experience of expanded consciousness, heightened perception, and a profound realization that love is the only thing that truly matters. She also shares some experiences in a hotel, which I'm sure you'll all be wanting to check into. We also explore her passion for nurturing children, the power of seeing the world through their eyes, and the role of education in shaping the next generation. As the founder and CEO of WOW Learning Lab, Judy is dedicated to rethinking education and empowering young minds, ensuring that they're met with wisdom, care, and guidance. This is a conversation about awakening, love, purpose, and the unexpected paths that lead us home to ourselves. Get ready. This is a deeply insightful and heart-opening discussion with a truly inspiring human. Let's dive in. Today, I am so incredibly blessed and honored to have none other than the beautiful, humble, kind, empathetic, there's just not enough words to describe you, Judy Julin. Welcome to Wild, Wacky, Wonderful Humans.
I love it, and there's 3 W words. It couldn't be even better. Wild, wacky, and wonderful, and I love it. It's almost like the wrestling, the WWE or the Wrestling Federation or something. But I love I love you from the moment we met. I think we met on Zoom when you went through the training for the resident learning approach when we were going to Croatia with the nonprofit that I started. So yeah, love it every time I'm in your midst, and it's a thrill and a joy to reconnect with you.
Thank you, Judy. And wasn't that an incredible time? Spending a month together. We spent one whole month together in Pula, Croatia, for those who are listening. And Judy had created this incredible children's program for Mind Valley University. And there were all ages, right? Started at infants and up to teens.
The youngest was 2. Some of them didn't even speak English, and you're really well aware of that. It was one of the more incredible experiences, and you got to see Leon at he does so many things wonderfully, but when he's with the children, I don't know if you saw that video that I published on social media recently about him going through that big mural on the wall that the kids did, and he was reading it, and it was this big mural. You remember the mural that they did?
Oh, it was incredible.
And he put it up on the wall, and then he was going through it at the end of the day, and you can hear the kids in the background, and he's such a wonderful man. I'm so glad.
Such an incredible man. We're talking about Leon Campbell Jr., who he is, his humility, his kindness, and his depth of care is just incredible, isn't it? And he is a very important figure, or I don't quite know how to describe him without taking away from his brilliance. He works at Agape Centre, and he facilitates the children's program there. And he's about to go to Maui, isn't he? And he's releasing a book. So look him up. If you're listening to this, look up Leon Campbell Jr., incredible voice, incredible soul. He sings too, doesn't he?
He sings, he writes music, he acts. He did a one-man show that I went to, which was phenomenal. And he's so. Well, I think the reason we've endured such a lovely, long-lasting friendship, not to say you have to endure it, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
That oh, I got to endure that. But no, it's not that at all. He's got the children in his heart, and he's authentic as you are. But it's the children because they're so special to me. And that's why I think I see who he is, and I see how he is with the children. So
He's
he's
like the Pied
beautiful.
Piper, isn't he? They just
He's
want to
like the
be in
Pied
his
Piper.
presence.
And
Like
he's good in
you,
that.
Judy, like
Oh,
you.
I love them. I love them.
You are incredible. And, the things that you're doing for, I hand on heart want to say humanity, because you're at the coalface. So you're providing wisdom and help and advice for parents who, children, and I'll hand over to you to talk about how you feel this flow or this magic happens. But children entering the world, there's that cliche, children are the future, but they are. Like, that's not even a cliche. This is the truth, right? Children are our future. And how blessed are we to have someone like you at the helm, helping people understand these beautiful beings as they enter the world and helping them form and grow and step into their truth. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about why you do that and how this kind of came about and how you feel about this contribution to this part of the life cycle, I guess?
Oh, so beautifully articulated, Janine. I knew that coming on to your podcast was going to be special, and it's so well suited for you and who you are. So thank you for that beautiful introduction. So my sister at one point said to me, Judy, you've never babysat. You don't have any educational degree, and you've never been a parent. Why the hell do you keep doing what you're doing? Because I've been doing it since the 80s. And she was saying it in a loving manner. But, I was in my early 30s. I was a step grandmother to, eight little ones with my former husband had 7 children. And at the end of his life, he had 23 grandchildren. So when I was with him, they called me, they call me Grand Judy. So, so I love children, but it really, I have to say, I've always been kind of childlike and whimsical my whole life. Yet, you spoke of it earlier, and I don't know if you want to get into this right now, but I had a spiritual awakening in 1981.
Oh yeah, can I pre-frame this, because I love the way.
All right, because it's the answer to this question. So you could do what you need to do, and I'm happy to say whatever.
I just want to use your words, because I got this from the bio of your book, and these words just jumped off the page to me, and I want other people to experience this with me. So you said that you had a spontaneous spiritual awakening to Hollywood via a psychiatric ward. Please.
Yes.
Please let us know what this is about.
Well, I was living, I was born and raised and led my married life and a lot of my adult life in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And that's where I know my friend Deb Coyle, who we still remain friends today, and we work together and are housemates. So that's fantastic.
Beautiful
so anyways,
soul she is.
Yes, another one. So I was in a wonderful whirlwind relationship. And I was absolutely head over heels with this guy. Absolutely loved him. It was probably 3-4 months, and it ended abruptly. And what I can say from that experience is that because I try to think, like, how the heck did all that happen to me? After many years and much research and inner, knowing and learning and growing and instruction, I realized that I was probably so ripe for a spiritual awakening because my heart was wide open. It was just broken. It was broken from a love affair that ended, and I was just distraught. So and I'm going to kind of speed this up a little bit, but you can, but it's
we're patient. we want the detail. We want the fun. We want the fear. Real emotion. Give us the raw experience.
It's all there.
Oh.
So I I'm trying to think. I was meeting a friend. That's right. I was meeting a friend downtown. I live downtown, and downtown Pittsburgh, and a good friend of mine from grade school, actually, who has since passed on. And his father was in the mafia, and Frank used to show me the bullet holes in the car and say, "Look, this is where my dad." We were youngsters, but anyways, his
Great
dad was in the
friends.
mafia.
Yeah.
They had an Italian restaurant, and
It's
it was
probably
the
good to
whole
have
thing.
friends in the mafia rather than enemies, right?
Absolutely. So needless to say, he was running his dad's Italian restaurant, and I used to go to see him. So I went in, and I would go sit at the bar and maybe have a glass of wine and talk with Frank, who was the owner's son and pretty much ran the business. And all of a sudden, I was just there. I was still, quite brokenhearted, but I was just kind of commiserating with him. I think I had just gotten back from the gym. And all of a sudden, I noticed like a feeling of a man behind me who was sitting at a table all by himself. And he kind of had an interesting way about him. I'm very empathic, so I sense the energies of people. Even back then, I was, I've been a meditator since the early 80s. Actually, I started after this experience. That's what led me to meditate. And the gentleman that was sitting at the table, and I looked at him, and he didn't have a tie on, and this was quite a respectable establishment. So Frank, they had a very, very strict dress code. So I could see that Frank had his maitre d' go over and say to the gentleman, "You're going to have to leave because you don't have, a tie on." And this guy was, somewhat elderly, and to me, he looked like Ernest Hemingway. The pictures that we see of Ernest Hemingway. And I said, "Frank, I don't know why I'm saying this to you, but there's something very special about this man. Please treat him kindly." I knew Frank would, but I just said it for some reason. So the man left, and there was something very unusual about this man, almost otherworldly. So then a little while later, he comes back in, and lo and behold, he has a tie on and a sport coat. This is an older man, kind of scruffy looking, like Ernest Hemingway.
Wow.
And I said, "Frank, look at that. Isn't that amazing?" Because Frank would come over and talk to me. All of a sudden, I'm sitting there. I look to my right about 2 seats down, and there's a man reading an old tattered The Fisherman in the Sea. The Old Man in the Sea, Ernest Hemingway's book, is reading it right next to me at the bar.
Oh, wow.
I'm telling you.
Goosebumps. Whoa.
I know. I had them too. I'm just a broken-hearted young lady sitting having, and I didn't do anything. And he
Who
looks
sent
up
this
at me.
man?
He looks up at me and he said, "I see you've noticed my friend." And I said, "Well, yeah." And he said, "Would you like to meet him?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I would. There's something very interesting about him." And he puts the book down. He was reading the Old Man in the Sea. And I noticed his fingernails, which is an odd thing to say, but they were shaped differently. His cuticles were like, I don't know, round or square. It just didn't look like a normal person's hands.
Wow.
And I just thought, well, this is an odd circumstance. So anyways, he said, "Well, he's staying at this hotel, and he can meet us in the lobby. I'll walk over with you." It was still, I think it was light out. So I thought, what the heck? I'm fine. I'll just walk over there. It's light. Frank knows me. He knows I'm going over there. So we went over. The man never showed up. And I thought to myself, I was in kind of like an energy field, is all I can really say. I maybe had one, maybe not even finished my glass of red wine. So it wasn't alcohol, and I don't do drugs. So I thought, I just don't, there's something, I'm in something, and it's very special. I don't know what the hell it is. I'm going to not leave. I don't want to leave this energy field. I'm going to stay overnight in this hotel. It was a beautiful hotel.
Wow.
I was working for my parents' my dad's company at the time, so I could get to work in the morning and, leave from there. So then I went to bed, and the next morning I woke up, and it was as though I was in a completely different world. I don't know what it was. I don't think I was slipped anything because I was still able to talk and live my life. But it was as though I had rose-colored glasses on.
Wow.
I got room service, and the eggs came, and they were glistening. And And it was
Can
just
we,
like,
what's the address of this hotel? I think all these listeners are going to be saying, give me the address of this hotel.
well, I don't even know if it was the hotel. It was something within me that had shifted, or I was in another dimension. I don't know what it was, but I didn't want to leave it because it was so spectacular, the feeling. And they were playing Handel's Water music, and I was just in heaven. I was having my breakfast, and then so I went to work, and I was kind of starting to talk. I was, work for my brother, so it was a family business, and I wanted to start to tell people about what was going on, and it got a little bit. It was hard for me to articulate in my mind what just happened to people that know me as Judy, and what was I saying. So I kind of didn't talk about it anymore. But then it was still with me as I left. So I thought, I'm going to go down maybe and just try to see things, or I didn't know what to do. And then I went back to where I was living at the time, and I said to my neighbor, do you want to, go out to dinner or something? Because I didn't want to leave this place. And then I just didn't know what to think anymore. I was just like, it was still with me, but it wasn't with me, and I didn't know what was happening. And so I started, when I went out to dinner with my friend, I started seeing colors around people.
Oh, wow.
And, I didn't know about auras, and I could hear their thoughts. And I would look at people and I would think, he's got a bad way about him, or he's not well, or he's sick. I don't know what it was.
So you were having this experience. What were you thinking at the time? Because it was the first time you'd experienced this. Was it curiosity?
I don't know.
Was it excitement? Was it fear? Like, what was coming up for you in that moment?
In these moments, I wasn't fearful.
Right.
I knew for some reason I was on this magical mystery tour. It wasn't drug induced.
I love it.
I just thought, well, okay, I didn't know at the time that why it happened, or how. I later realized it was because my heart was so open. I was almost dipped into another dimension of reality. I could hear thoughts. People were talking to me that were almost, I would almost say that I thought that they were maybe otherworldly, that were in the midst of the crowds, and I could talk to them and they would talk to. It was just very, very odd.
How long did this last?
A weekend.
Wow.
And I started to then try to tell people about it.
Good luck with
my mom, my brother, and it was like, Judy. And I said, oh, but it's so beautiful. And it was almost like, they thought, is she manic? Is she schizophrenic? What's going on? And I didn't know, and I didn't have anything in my system, but I just knew how beautiful it was. For some reason, I was chosen or alerted or whatever to experience this. And I knew, if I could say the final result of that weekend experience in a nutshell, it was, I realized the purpose of life. Now that sounds, I know.
What is it, Judy? Tell us, please.
That the only thing that's important is love.
Oh.
That's the only, came up.
Can you, we're going to have a moment of silence, and can you say that again? We really need to hear this.
It's the absolute reason for our existence, and it's the only thing that's important is love. Love, love, love. And then I was starting to say that to everybody, and they thought, well, Judy, okay. It was just such grand thoughts. And then it started to be, well, they're not listening to me. And I got frustrated, and why is this happening to me? So then they suggested that maybe I go into a hospital for a little while. And I said, well, okay, I'm not sick, but I'm having a challenge figuring out why this is happening.
Wow,
I love
incredible.
it. It feels great, but it's not jiving with my existence.
And then, so what happened? So you've seen One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, right?
That's part of the story too.
Oh,
I wrote about it in my book because they drugged me. I was on heavy psychotropic drugs. I was walking on my toes. I was slobbering. So I remembered the movie, and I thought, well,
can we just, for those who haven't seen the movie or don't know about the movie, can we just give a really quick recap of what that's about? And maybe you give the recap with your experience attached to it, because it sounds like this is what happened to you. Yeah.
So I signed myself into the hospital. Of course, my mother would come and visit me, and she was there. She said, my daughter's not. They were saying that I had a manic episode, or I was a schizophrenic. So So One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Jack Nicholson, I don't actually remember the entire movie, but I know he was in a mental institution and they were giving him drugs and he didn't want to take them. So he would put them under his tongue. And when he got back to his room, he'd spit them out or put them somewhere so that they didn't. Well, I thought, well, I'm going to do that too, because I couldn't think. I was slobbering. I was walking on my toes, and my mother's like, "What is going on here?" She'd come and visit me every day, and it was like, but here's the thing, Janine. I got to be friendly with the people that were the patients, and I thought to myself, these people are saner than the people out in the world.
Wow.
Because they're caring and they're loving and they're innocent and they look at the world in a different way and they're misunderstood, and I loved them. It was just such a fascinating depiction, and I'll give you an example. So I started putting them under my tongue. That was that. But the doctor, this is another really quick story, but this is all in my book. I'll send you a copy. The doctor, was taking notes, and he'd look down his glasses and he'd say, do you hear voices? And I said, well, yeah, I hear voices, don't you? I mean, I'm just thinking.
We all, okay, so hands up, everyone who's listening to this right now, who hears voices in your head? If you don't, you're probably not human, right? Or
it's yourself talking to you. So exactly. I was saying, of course so he'd write that down, and then he'd say, I was a runner at the time. And he said, what are you doing? I run. He said, oh, what are you running from? I said, well, I just like to exercise. I mean, literally, I just like to exercise. And so he'd write that down. And then he'd say to my mom, your daughter's really, she's hearing things and blah, blah, blah. We're prescribing this medication. I was there for 2 weeks. So near the end of my time there, they had this big blue bus that they would take the inmates or patients or whatever to the movies. And I love the movies. So I got on the big blue bus, and, I was there with my patient mates, and who I had grown to really, you have to be careful, but I cared for them in a friendly manner. And so I get onto the bus, and I was kind of standing up front with the bus driver, and she said, I had a little conversation with her. She said, you don't really belong here, do you? I said, no. She says, well, why are you here? I said, well, I don't really know, but I'm here. So here's the thing. We go to the movie, and the movie that was playing, because I was still in this state of expanded awareness in different dimensions. The name of the movie was The Getting of Wisdom.
Oh.
And I thought, wow, it's all about wisdom and the difference between, living a life, but gaining in wisdom and gaining in clarity and gaining in authenticity. And I thought,
how interesting.
That's why I'm here. This is an experience. This is an experience for me to garner wisdom for my life. Isn't that crazy?
That's incredible. And sometimes we have these, we get sideswiped, or we feel like we're going off path to where we consider we need to go. And in fact, that sweeping you off the path, that detour, is often the gift. This is what we
exactly, Janine, what my experience was. I continue to this day to consider it a gift. Wow. So I finally got out, 2 weeks. I moved back in with my mom. I had been in an apartment, and they were wanting to, look after me. And I was, she knew I was fine. I was fine. So listen to this. This is crazy, really happened. So there's a Shenley Park, which is beautiful near my home. And I used to run there. Okay, so I'm running one day in this fall or the spring, which is beautiful in Pittsburgh. And all of a sudden, if I didn't see my psychiatrist jogging, the guy that looked over his glasses at me, and his name was Dr. Richards. And I kind of liked it. I wanted to be friendly with him. So I run up next to him, and I said, hi, Dr. Richards. Remember me? Judy Julin. He looked at me. And he took off running.
What was he running from?
And I yelled after him, Dr. Richards, what are you running from? I mean, come on. You can't make that stuff up. It just, but anyways, fast forward. It was shortly after that experience that I opened my first business, which was called Kids at Heart. This is in the 80s. I raised the money myself. My mom helped me, but I also raised from Mrs. Hillman and the senior Mr. Hines from Hines Ketchup and Pickles. I did presentations to them because I wanted to impart to children and parents at that way back then about the importance of love, importance of kindness, importance of empathy, compassion, eating right. I had this big thing. It was called the Junk Food Hall of Shame. I had lights on it. And they had all the junk foods like Bobby Kennedy's doing now. And it was just incredible. I taught them fitness, nutrition, manners, and self-esteem. And people are saying, what do you mean fitness? Who cares? It's the 80s, that nobody,
way back then when people weren't even talking about this stuff.
So that's where the children came to me. That's where I love business. I'm an entrepreneur. I love to grow an idea. And I thought, I'm going to do this. I'm going to impact the way we educate our youth in a powerful and positive way. And from that day forward, which I believe was born out of my open heart thing and somebody else said, I forgot to tell you this. The guy who looked like Ernest Hemingway, I was told his name is Mr. Higgins. And I thought, wow, look, Eliza Doolittle. I thought I went into meeting him one way and I came out the other end 3 weeks later and I was like an Eliza Doolittle.
That's incredible, Judy.
I know.
And they say that there's a real fine line between insanity and enlightenment, right? And so when you think about that experience you had of going into that place for 2 weeks, the people, the souls that you met there, potentially misunderstood, right? So they're having an experience, and people misunderstand them. And it's the same for you, that you get encouraged, I guess, to check yourself in. And One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, he gets checked in because people think there's something going on with him, and then he eventually becomes more and more insane because he's a part of this creating the insanity or believing in the insanity, and so he becomes insane. And the thing that really resonated for me is you can check yourself in, but you can't check yourself out, which is really like you get stuck in this. But yeah, there's that fine line between enlightenment and insanity, and it feels like the enlightenment moment for you embraced that. You didn't fall into the insanity trap, which could also be easy, right? Because that's an easy way out too sometimes for some people, because it takes effort to bring the love. It takes effort to bring the care and the empathy. And how incredible that you chose that path. And immediately, like you went, right, okay, I want to work with children. You did these presentations to people. You raised your own money. That's just incredible.
I did. And it was at the heart of it was, it's all about love.
Yeah,
that's
right,
really.
Right. So I want to unpack that a little bit. So you said a couple of things there, that it's all about love. You said it's so important for children to experience, education around fitness and, what they're eating and being loved and cared for.
And kindness. And I had a manners class. Yes.
Manners. Why is this important, Judy? Why is it all about love?
I think we're finding even today that the education system, it's not always about academia, because you can have the brightest minds, and if you don't have an elevated heart space, or what I like to call, I'm talk a lot now about frequency-based education. That's kind of the platform that I stand for. Yeah, but it's all about the frequency behind not only what you're learning. Is it true? Is it not true? Is there an agenda? The teachers, are they happy? Are they fulfilled themselves? Are they carrying around, as we learned about with Resonant Learning Approach, the training program that I developed, that these unhealed wounds that parents or teachers or grandparents or caregivers carry around with them, that affects the child far more than what they're learning. And if you give them a loving, caring environment, they will learn. I happen to believe, and especially now with AI, you're going to learn it. You're going to find it. They don't really have to find their ABC. They can find. I mean, you can teach the ABCs and science and everything in nature.
Tell me about this. I really love this. Because you were talking on one of your podcasts about how we can learn physics and science and
everything.
Yeah, talk to us about
that. Just imagine if you think about nature. Nature itself, with the seashells and the sunflowers, and there's so much exquisite beauty in nature itself, and trees, and grounding yourself and earthing and sun gazing. I mean, we're learning more and more that we perhaps weren't told or educated on the benefits of sunlight and being out in nature. And I have a whole sticker series with, now my business is called CosmiKids and World of Wonder Learning Lab. And the stickers I have for the little ones, I mean, trees listen. And, we live in a responsive living universe. And so when we begin to have that at a young age, and we look to our elders, look at the Native American traditions, they all know this. And being raised by the tribe, that it's, go ahead.
What's the benefits of that? So what's the benefits of firstly being raised by the tribe, and then the of nature? So what's coming out now? Because some of our listeners might know that there's benefits, or think or hear that there's benefits, but what really are they? What are those tangible benefits, so we can start prioritizing it for a start, and then secondly actually doing it? Because it's all very well said and done, I've got to get out into nature more. If people really truly understand the impact of that rather than the idea of that, then maybe we might make more of a change towards that, especially parents with kids, right? How many kids are sitting inside all the time on devices? So if you could share with us
the food. Well, if you think of I can't go really into the science, but certainly everybody can do their own research about the foods we eat, the thoughts we consume, the that are in our mind. When you think about the sun, research is now coming out saying that the sun is so vital that don't even wear sunglasses. That this is supposed to be able to touch, get into your eyes, and sunblock is, in many accounts, isn't healthy for you. That of course, be sensitive to not getting burned, but the sunlight on your skin, and look at the trees, and many say that there's healing benefits by, they kind of made fun of people saying they're tree huggers, but there's something really beneficial about that. And earthing, go look at earthing and what that whole process is of taking your shoes off and grounding your energies, because we are energetic beings, and especially on the soles of our feet and our hands. If you know Reiki at all, I'm a Reiki master in Feng Shui. I do all those kind of energy things. I've learned how to do them, and it's all about incorporating that, what I'm proposing, into our education system. So people can do their own research on the benefits of nature, benefits of healthy foods. And I just finished a neuro-linguistic programming 6-week student. I learned about it from Lois Herman, and it's all about the thoughts that we think, and you know this, and that can oftentimes make you sick if you're anxious, or you don't communicate clearly how you're feeling, and you bottle up these emotions, that it's not healthy.
Well, you talked about, actually, on one of your podcasts, you talked about Dr. Emoto's water experiment, which is this, right? It's the thoughts that you have. So Dr. Emoto had different jars of water, and then spoke differently to each of those jars of water, and the crystals of the water actually change shape based on the way we treat the water. And in which case, you're just talking about now, if we speak to ourselves unkindly, then we're going to create that disease in our body, aren't we?
Absolutely. And in Dr. Emoto's work, part of his research, so he would have one jar of rice or water that was with love pasted on it, and love feelings toward it. One was hate, and one was ignored. So there was no tending to it at all. And he said the one that became the most irregular in its shape of the crystalline forms of the water was the one that was ignored. So then we can begin to think about how, when we ignore our children, that they, to be seen and to be heard, and to be encouraged, So this is all about frequency. So you think about Dr. David Hawkins. I don't know if you or your readers know of Dr. David Hawkins. He wrote the book Power versus Force. It's a fabulous book. I did a whole podcast on it. But he has a continuum of frequencies for consciousness, which he tests with muscle testing. He's written many books on it, but he can give you the consciousness level of many, many things, whether it's, the Bible or a strip club, or any kind of things. And you can see the consciousness level that there's all heavy, denser energies down here: anger, hate, jealousy. And then as you come up, and it's a beautiful continuum of frequencies based on consciousness levels. Mm-hmm. And so as we're moving through our humanity on planet Earth, the frequencies, and you've heard of the Schumann resonance, I'm sure, are raising, and so it's affecting us. And what I'm thrilled about, because I've been singing this song since the early 80s about education and what's important. They say, oh, academics are important. Of course they're important, but to fully be open to a full, productive, happy life as an adult, you can have, all the medals in the world and all the money. But if you're not fulfilled and happy, as you and I have learned through Mind Valley and, a lot of the things there, it's the same for our kids. Because as you said, they're our future leaders. And how do they learn best? Parents are the first and the most enduring teachers a child can have. And they model and they learn. And that's how they learn.
And
so
I think
oftentimes,
I think it's incredible that we talked about this at the beginning, that you're getting into that early phase, to help parents and to inspire parents. You have a magazine called Inspired Parenting.
Inspired Parenting.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you're inspiring parents to be able to create this platform. And I think, Judy, I'm really curious to understand with AI, I feel like your work is going to be far more important, or it's already really, really important, but I guess more digested or more desired, because I feel like the academia is high level academia, probably a long time to disappear, or I don't think it'll ever disappear. But if you think about people like myself, who I have a brain, I can think.
Oh,
but
yes,
I can
you do.
also use AI to do so much of the things that I would have done to use my brain effectively. And so what that means then is that I'm making a shift from academia way of being and into more being, feeling, frequency, presence. And I feel like the work that you've been doing since the 80s will now be truly embraced by more and more people, because all of that other stuff will fall away. And then what are we without that? What are we without the creation of academia type work, science, maths, English, writing? When all of that will be taken away from us, what are we at our core then? How do you feel about that AI journey? And
you bring up a very, very good point, Janine. And I have said this before many times, actually, that and this is before I even knew what AI was, but I said to my coworkers and friends, and eventually with technology, we're going to be able to download any information we need. So if the children are going to have access to all this, what then becomes education? And to me, it would be to offer to our youth a safe and sacred environment for them to simply be. Let them be truly who they are. And so that we don't judge, we don't drug them, we don't admonish them. I have in my frequency-based education, I have 3 components: frequency sensing, frequency matching, and frequency honoring. So with the children, so first you sense, because these kids, they feel much more than they hear. They feel you if they're incongruent with what you're saying and what you're really feeling. So we want to sense the energies of the children, and that entails that we need to slow down to do that. We need to be mindful, be in the present.
That? Do you think the parents you're coming across now are more able to do that? Or is that because we go through phases, right? When we're really highly stressed, it's really difficult to sense. And particularly as a parent, when you're busy, you're working, you're doing all the things. I don't know about in the US, but in Australia where I live, there's less focus on work now. There's more focus on family and community since COVID, which, was a disaster at the time. And it feels like it's a blessing for communities and for this type of work. Have you seen a shift at all with the sensing element of the frequency-based learning?
I don't know. That's a really good question. Do I sense a shift? I don't know that we're exactly there yet.
Yeah. Okay.
The frequency sensing, frequency matching, which I mean, like, you want to match their frequency because that's like an NLP. You want to be able to meet them where they are, and frequency honoring wherever the child is, meet them where they are without judging. Because, when I worked at the Hunter School for a year in New Hampshire, I'm going to just skip a little bit. These children were residential. It was a therapeutic residential school for children with extreme behavioral challenges. They hired me as an educationalist. I was there in 2015. It was their coldest winter. I lived in a haunted house, and I helped them.
Sounds like a great adventure.
It was a great.
I don't have a podcast just on that experience.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I was there at the same time that the Spirits of Amiskay was being written by Lois. I didn't know her, and I was in a haunted house. She's doing spirit work, and it was like, what? But anyways, When I was there, these children from ages kindergarten through 8th grade, residential, they lived there. And they were really, really something. I mean, a lot of them had particular issues, but I loved them because I could be with them. I didn't know what frequency-based education was at the time, but I helped them to develop their energetic mindfulness curriculum because it's about paying attention not only to the children, but their parents. Because oftentimes the children might act out because of an energetic frequency coming from their parents for judgment, and the parents are doing the best that they can, but we're talking about on a very, very subtle level. So by all accounts, I still think that people are going to have pretty much of a rude awakening when they realize that the higher education, now people are shifting more to trade and what can you do, how you can do it with your hands or candle making, or what you can do to contribute to your community, because we're going to have all the information that we need. You want to be the best person that you can be. So I think character development, critical thinking, so that we question, ask, do our own research, don't become complacent, which is kind of where our world is. Why we're in this world today, because we didn't get involved and do our own research. And
so how do we, Judy, as parents, how do we honor the frequency of our children so we can sense and we can match? So that's something that some people will need to work on and develop and build that ability.
It's a continuum.
It comes naturally for us, but then we pretty much condition it out of ourselves because we condition ourselves to society, right? And so we stop sensing and matching, but it's always there. So once we come back to that, how do we then, when we're in the frequency of our child, how do we honor our children? Have you got any?
Really great question, Janine. Did you want to say something?
I was just saying, do you have anything that you can provide our listeners just as a real tangible tool, I guess, for those who are struggling to do that? Because maybe you can sense and you can match the frequency, but maybe because we're all different humans and we all have different ways of being, maybe it doesn't match our natural way of being. Our child's frequency might be very different to our frequency. And then how do we then make them both work together? By honouring the child, but also honouring ourselves as well and being a good role model. As you mentioned, parents are the models, right? So being a good role model as a parent and also honouring the child at the same time. Some people might find that quite complicated.
Yeah, well, it is, and it's simple as well. I always would say in the final analysis to parents, lead your best life, because that's what the child's going to see. And lead your most authentic life. So when you're sad, be sad. Because when you're saying something and you're feeling something different inside, whether you don't want your child to be upset or passive aggressive, who knows, or judgment. Children, especially highly sensitive children, really feel judgment. And oftentimes they'll act out or to get your attention, or it's so to me, the parent lead your best life, which means I was speaking with someone earlier today that they call it MEPS. It's the mental, it's the emotional, it's the physical, and it's the spiritual. Especially the spiritual. You regain your connection with whatever your divine connection is, and because to live for a greater purpose, I think is really important. And parents, but to clean your own garden, keep your own landscape clean in your garden, parent of children, because if you do that, that's the best school. The child, when a child watches you overcome frustration, overcome impatience, overcome anything like that. I mean, you don't overcome greed, because oftentimes you don't think you're greedy, but stuff like that. Do your own personal work to raise your frequency, raise your consciousness level, because the kids are already there. They're already at that refined level from birth. Yeah. They are closest to the other side when they come in, and they're our elders as well. So I think it's just live your best life and be authentic with your children. So and judgment's a big, and judgment is a big thing, because I'll just use an example. In business, if you're not making, you have to keep the doors open, but we're thinking, well, when I make X amount, in revenues and profits, then I'm successful. But what if, and I think you alluded to this earlier today, what if the journey is not about the profit and revenues? What if it's about the person you're becoming which is why we're all on planet Earth. I mean, I believe we're here to learn and grow, and that's what's really important. And so I, in my own mind, judge, well, I didn't do this, I'm not successful, blah, blah, blah. That's not what it is. It's the getting of wisdom that I learned when I was on the bus. It's the getting of wisdom. How the big blue bus? How can we be? What is wisdom, and how do we accrue it? We do it through falling down. Look, a little toddler falls down, gets up, falls down, gets up. In our society, and unfortunately, parents were brought up this way, that to fail is, that's not a good thing, or to go through challenges, and that's not what you want. You want it to be, so live your most authentic, best life, parent, and that is fall down, have your child watch when you get up, and learn what you're learning, because that's how they're going to learn too. And nobody's perfect. We're all learning and growing, and judgment's a big thing though. But if parents can work on judgment of what they, developmental milestones, whoever put those together? I mean, Dr. Spock didn't really know. These children today are completely different. So we need to, what I was talking about, the Hunter School, these kids, they were allowed to be on their devices for short periods of time. But I noticed many of them, you think they're on their device, but they could hear and understand and comment on things that are going on way far away, because they're built differently. They're wired differently. And especially the kids coming in today, if you've ever heard anything about the indigo children or the star children, these children are wired differently. So we can't use the old rules for them. The best thing we can do is continue with our MEPS, mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, for us as the parent, us as the teacher, and then the kids will lead. We give them boundaries, we give them expectations, and so it's not like you just let them run wild.
So what I'm hearing, Judy, is I feel like you've kind of tapped into also the judgment element is also self-judgment, because you talked about, as a parent, if you fall down, get back up. Let them see you fall and get back up. Let them see you being, upset or frustrated and getting back up, and let them, I guess, seeing the resilience in you as well, right? So that if you do fall, you can get back up. And I think as adults, we seem to be more forgiving for a child falling over and getting back up than we do for ourselves. And so as a parent, role modeling, you're allowing your child to fall down, but not yourself. And that's a huge judgment, isn't it? And that can definitely provide a barrier between let's go back to what the original question I was asking about, how do we sense and match and then honor our child? I guess honoring ourselves is a huge part of that entire process, right? It's not just honoring the child, but it's honoring our influence and our impact on our children too. Would that be fair to say?
Absolutely. And it's also within yourself, honoring your own impact on you, because we're all on the path.
Yeah.
And I go back to developmental milestones, because the children today are so, you can't really, even if you think of, frequency, honoring, sensing, and matching, you can only do your best as a parent with what you know. Maybe you don't know about frequencies. It's as simple as, getting down on your hands or your knees to meet the child at that level. I'm just taking it a few steps further to meet them at the frequency level, because they're lighthearted, they're innocent, they love, they want to go play. And do they have to come in and eat at a certain time, or do they have to? What if they came in when they were hungry? And what if we let them get take their shoes off and go in the mud puddles? And it's just, I think that parenting and the education system are changing rapidly. I think homeschooling is really great. And there's lots of people say that they don't have the time or the understanding to how to do it. There's so many wonderful tools and people that are doing great stuff that can give you resources to homeschool. And there's, neighborhood pods where you get together with your neighbors and you come together.
I've heard about this, where it's almost like a school in itself, right? A homeschooling school. I've got a friend who lived in LA, and, they used to meet, so the parents would contribute to whatever skill set they had. They could run a workshop, or they could, create a group where there was some kind of facilitation in the group, and they would meet every week and multiple times a week. There might have been a person who taught soccer or football, or someone who, my friend, she's a filmmaker, and so she would teach, screenwriting and filmmaking. And so it was just incredible, the community that they created. And it was about nurturing the child, which is, thankfully for people like you, Judy, who have planted the seeds way back when, in the 80s, where it's now coming into fruition, because we are starting to care. It's not that we didn't care, but it's that we have got a little bit of bandwidth, I guess, a little bit of capacity. And, AI gets a really bad rap, but I feel like AI is going to give us the permission and the opportunity, if we use it right, to be able to do more of this stuff and connect with our children. And, maybe people will feel that they can homeschool more easily because there is support. There are more people doing it in communities, and you've been able to create that for people, which is just incredible. So thank you on behalf of humanity for creating and sticking to the dream, the dream that you had after the big blue bus. You stuck with it, and you've been
that's another thing that is stick-to-itiveness. And that children learn a lot from that. I mean, why don't I stop doing this? Because it's who I am. It's what and another thing about the education process, I propose that we do our best to match the child at the youngest age possible with their special gifts, because I believe every child has gifts and a special purpose in life, and if we can match them with that at the youngest age, then send them on that trajectory, because they'll always be happy. They're enthralled with what they're doing, as opposed to, doing something that they might not want to do and they might not want to learn.
Yeah, exactly. But I think they get stuck in the system, don't they? And then they're fighting up against the thing that they're not.
And sometimes it's because, we've had doctors in our generation after generation. My dad was a doctor. My grandfather was a doctor. I'm going to be a doctor. And maybe he doesn't want to be a doctor, or she, maybe. Yeah. So,
but also maybe they don't want to let the family down, right? So they feel obligated to do what the parents did or the grandparents did. and then they're not really feeling fulfilled. And, I'm meeting clients who, adults, have been living a life of somebody else's, and, they're coming for therapy or for healing to remove the desire to please other people, because they're not living a life that's really truly joyous. They're living somebody else's dream and not their own. So I love, Judy, that you are not only living your dream, because it's not just a dream, it's a purpose. Your purpose is around contribution. From an outsider looking in, I feel like it's easy for us to be driven when we truly know that we're contributing and we're making a difference to the world. Do you feel like, for our listeners who, might be lost, or they might not have had a big blue bus experience, they might not have had an Ernest Hemingway sitting in the bar next to them experience. For people who don't, because for some people that change is an experience like that, and for other people it's many, many years of things going wrong. I say wrong in inverted commas because you think it's the pathway and maybe it's not. What would you suggest for our listeners, for them to fall into or find or slowly discover their sense of purpose when it comes to being driven to do what they do every day? Do you have any guidance on that? People you've come across that perhaps might have had a different experience to you, or you're a coach as well, an incredible coach. I've been blessed to be coached by you. So yeah, do you have any support or advice or guidance for people to find
I think
that?
I think it's very simple, Janine, to pay attention. Pay attention to what excites you. Because, if we think way back when, how can I make a living at this? Or how can I make this work? I'm asking you to suspend that for just a little bit. And even if it's just take up a knitting class, go to a woodworking class, go, play poker, whatever you really, really love. Because there's something in the seeds of genuine satisfaction, unbridled joy of doing something. Maybe it's surfing. Maybe I just happen to have a strong connection with children. And perhaps it's because I never bore them myself, because it gives me an interesting opportunity to give more to all the children. Because I have an infinite capacity to give.
That's beautiful.
And I think that's probably why I've never been missed not having children. I love my life and my choices. It's not always easy, but that's how we grow. So I think it's pay attention to also what thrills your child, and not worry about them having to get a law degree to go off and then they're not going to be able to do what they're going to do, and I'm going to be dead and they're going to be homeless. Don't go down that road. Simply pay attention to what interests and excites and attracts you, your children, your spouse, because those are the keys, especially when they're young. The children, what are they drawn to? What do they love? I there's a lot of things that I love, but I love business, and it's interesting. You were talking earlier about watching someone when they're, going through a rough time. I do a lot of business on the golf course, and we also talked about, being in a relationship with someone. It's interesting on the golf course how you can really see a lot about a person, how they handle frustration.
More, because I've never been engaged in golfing, and I've always thought, from an outsider looking in, that looks really boring. So give me the excitement around golfing.
Oh, I love
golf.
My former husband and we played a lot of golf together. My dad was a golfer, and my brother. I didn't play at a young age though, but I learned in my probably 20s.
So what is it?
But golf is all about staying in the moment, being present. It's a lot of on your honor. So there's times when people might not be as forthcoming or truthful about things like their score or where the ball is, all these different kinds of things. I can tell a lot about a person doing business on the golf course, and I could, if I were to meet someone and we would go on a date, I'd say, "Let's go golfing." If you're a golfer, I'd get to know a lot about
That's
them on the golf
really
course.
intriguing. I love that.
Yeah, because
Wow.
because it might look boring, it's an opportunity for reflection, for really paying attention to what's
Mm.
going on, and of course you're in nature, which is wonderful. But
Have
there's
you
lots about golf.
have you had a date on a golf course that you learnt things about someone that you went, oh, that's a definite no?
Not so much a date, but I did business, and I thought, now
Okay.
now it all makes sense. And of course, then you have to kind of counter that with judgment. So maybe there's a reason for that. So I can't really just take that one instance. But I have a lot of different things that might add to that
So you've got lots of data points
assessment.
that tell a story rather than just
Hmm.
one thing that happens, which I guess is life, right? When
Hmm.
you're in relationship with people, one thing might happen and you think, that's curious. I'll keep an eye on that. And then another thing happens and it just builds the story, doesn't it? Yeah. And so you talked about we'll go off on a different tangent now. You talked about, your partner that you played golf with. Is this your partner? Because I tell this story.
Which
uh,
partner?
That's what I was going to ask you. So I tell the story about Judy had an incredible relationship with an incredible man. We spoke about it just before the podcast. And I've mentioned this to a couple of people when they talk about age difference in
Ah,
relationships. Yeah. And I don't know if this is your partner that you played golf with, your husband. Did he play golf as well? So
yeah, we
Judy,
played
just
a
to shine
lot
a
of golf together.
Brilliant. So just to shine a light. So I remember I was talking to Judy about age differences when dating when I was single. And, I was a little bit reticent to date someone many years younger than me. And Judy kindly put me at ease and said that she had a relationship. Her husband was 32 years older than you, right, Judy?
He was
So,
a very special individual, though.
yeah.
I can't say it for everybody. It was a wonderful time in my life. We were together for 18 years, and
Wow.
but he was very, very special. He was very youthful and vital and open-minded and brilliant in business. So I learned so much from him, and he
Wow.
loved to have fun. So
How
it was a
old
great
were
time.
the both of you at the time when you met?
I met him when I was 30,
Right. Okay.
so he
Yeah.
was
Wow.
62.
Wow.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's it's not about the age, right? It's about the person. And so when you meet a person that you truly resonate with and you'd love to have fun with and you're learning from, then I think that's really special and precious. And we can be judgmental, here's that word again, when it comes to meeting someone. We can think we know what we don't want in a relationship. And then something shows up for us, and we're like, no, 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 I don't want someone who's 32 years older than me. But when you actually just stop and allow that connection to happen, it's incredible what can unfold, right? You had 18 magical years with this man. Imagine if you had said, no, he's too old for me.
Yeah. Well, I in my signature of my email, I don't know if you saw it, but it's the same tagline that I had with CosmiKids, which was my child enrichment business that I launched in Hollywood in 2007. But it's open minds, pure potential. So if we have an open mind about things,
I love that. Can you say that? Can you say it again? I just want to hear
sure,
that drop again.
open minds, pure potential.
Oh, yeah, that's beautiful.
So that you can, the sky's the limit, truly. And that's where the kind of judgment comes in. And if we incorporate that into a educational model or a parenting model, if we can have an open mind, because our children, are your precious. Of course, you can talk about your girls. If we can know that we're there for them, but it's their life. They're God's children, and they're with us for a while, and we can give our very best to them. And again, I say, best thing we can do is parents, live your best life, which
Yeah.
means, taking care of yourself on all those levels, especially spiritual development.
Oh, it's so important, isn't it? And yeah, thank you. Thank you for reminding us that that's important. I'm really conscious of the time, and we could just talk for hours and hours, but I've got a couple more things if you're still okay for time, Judy.
Yeah,
I just wanted to ask you, just talked about CosmiKids, and in your bio, you talk about sharing the stage of Deepak Chopra. And so I wanted to just tap into that because I understand you've shared the story that you created the children's program for Deepak Chopra. And I think a lot of listeners might be quite interested in understanding what that looks like and what was that experience like, sharing the stage, and, how did that come about?
Well, when I made a turn to the West Coast from Pittsburgh, when I decided to leave, I was literally at a stop sign in Pittsburgh. I remember very clearly, and I was thinking, what am I going to do? Because I had separated from my husband. We were amicable in our divorce and separation. And I literally said, turn to the West. And it was like, oh, okay, well, I always loved,
That's open mind, pure potential, isn't it?
So I thought, well, okay, and I was following Deepak Chopra. I'm a longtime meditator since the early 80s with Transcendental Meditation and Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who Deepak was originally with. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to go out to California. I'm going to attend one of Deepak's seminars. And if anything looks remotely interesting, I'm going to take my resume. So make a long story short, I was just had met someone, and he was in California, and that kind of like brought me there even more so. And I ended up living on the grounds for a short while where the Chopra Center for Wellbeing was in Carlsbad, California. And I would go up to them and knock on their door and say, hey, do you need any marketing or this or that? And so eventually they said, well, we don't have any money to pay you, but we'll give you, we'll give you points that you can redeem for classes.
Oh, wow.
So I ended up going to all his classes, and I got trained in Ayurveda and yoga and all this stuff. And one day I was on the bus. We were going somewhere. There was a bunch of us in one of his sessions. And I heard someone say, Deepak's looking to have a children's program. And I remember exactly where I was in that bus. And I thought, oh, wow. Something that was like an arresting thought to me. It's like, oh my, and I knew it was for me. I mean, divine.
You had that sense of knowing, did you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So I marched in there the next day and said, I can give you a A1 children's program. I said, I have only 3 things that are requirements. I said, number 1, I'm going to fund it myself so that I have creative control over it. Number 2, Deepak, I want to honor your work and your wisdom in the development, personal development, but I also want to bring in other thought leaders. So I want your work, but I'm also going to bring in other thought leaders. That's the second requirement. And the third is that I'm trying to think what the third thing is. I think it was it's going to be my business.
Nice.
But I will honor what you do, and I'll work with you in any way. So they didn't like any of that. I wasn't talking to Deepak. I was talking to his C-level staff. But they said, we need it, and we need it in 2 months.
Oh, wow.
And I said, no problem. I did it. I raised the money. I did it. We launched. It was fabulous. The people loved it. I had a coloring book with principles, Deepak's principles, and it was just fabulous.
That's incredible, Judy. Well done. That's
amazing. And so, but then La Costa, which is where his wellness center was, it became too small a field for me because La Costa wasn't really willing to help me promote it because they're, a resort, and Deepak is for the adult market. He's not for children. He's not made to do this for children. Mm-hmm. I am.
Yeah.
So it became too small for me. So I needed to go out on my own. So I raised even more money. And I launched in the Hollywood Highland Center in Hollywood a pop-up. It was called CosmiKids Play and Enrichment Center. It was fabulous. We were there for, I think, 6 to 8 months. And I was right above the American Idol finals. But it was so beautiful there. I mean, I had a designer. I mean, it was just absolutely gorgeous. Raised a bunch of money, had lots of interest for franchises. And so Deepak's daughter, Malika, heard about it, and she and her brother Gotham were working on a movie that was going to feature their dad's 7 spiritual laws of success.
Wow.
So she said, she contacted me and she said, Judy, can we come and film there for this movie? And I said, sure. And it's just gorgeous. If you see the movie Seven Spiritual Laws of Success, I'm featured in it. Olivia Newton-John's in it.
Wow.
Bill Duke, who's a producer for Hollywood. Phil Mickelson, who's a professional golfer, sister's in it. And the guy who used to play the drums, I think. No, something for Annie Lennox.
Oh,
Dave
wow.
Stewart is in it too.
Cool.
So there were like 6 of us. I was one of them, and I was like, wow.
That's
so.
Incredible.
Anyways,
we need to watch that movie, everyone. So that's a Seven Spiritual
fabulous.
Laws of Success, was it?
Yes.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it was on a DVD. So, anyways, we had a LA premiere and a New York premiere, and so I went to them, and I was on stage, and it was just me and Deepak. So it's like, okay, But the thing is, I remember this, and he's a very successful individual, but they wanted to ask me questions. They didn't want to ask him any questions after they saw the movie.
Wow.
It was after the movie we were answering questions because they were interested in the children. And I didn't know that he liked that all that much, but nonetheless, I was there in LA and New York, and I did share a stage with him, and it was lovely.
That's incredible. And that shows again, Judy, the desire for people to know more about children, and that children are our future, and that people are curious about how do we work with children, how do we nurture our children and help them grow into the beautiful human beings who will actually be running the world, right? Unless the world's run by AI, which is as a whole other conversation.
I think that AI is going to really give us an opportunity to align more with our special purpose and aim and humanitarian efforts, so that the mundane, that's why I think more and more the education process is going to go towards,
your work,
basket making, and
or
people that actually do things with their hands.
Agree.
It gets back to kind of like the pioneer days. I think more and more schools are doing that, and I think it's going to be a fascinating. And for education, it's really about education of the heart.
Exactly, and tapping back into that frequency, right? So when we're aware of, or when we sense our own frequency, then we know what we want to be doing and we love doing. And you're setting the stage for that. That's just incredible. So your work is going to be so desired and needed and implemented, which is the cool thing, right? Because it's going to be a no-brainer. People will need this and must implement it, which is really exciting for our future, right?
Yes. I'm charged. I do this for myself, but I think it's really, really critical. I do my own personal work because for this to be successful and to be relevant and to be authentic, I need to live what I'm proposing. So it's not just for the kids or for the educator. I need to do it in the business. I need to do it with the people I live with. I need to learn about, paying attention, learn about non-judgment, learn about the frequency behind the intentions. So it's really my work. But it's something that I love. So, and that's why I've never given up. And that's the big thing I would say to children: don't ever give up on your dream.
That's so beautiful, Judy. So beautiful. Like I said, we could just talk for hours. I think we could have a 5-hour long podcast. We might need to do another one so that we can do a recap or a part 2, part 3, part 5. I've just got 3 final questions that I ask everyone, and I'm sure these are coming. And the first one is, what is one of the wildest things you've ever done?
Oh, this is. Can we start with the wackiest?
Yeah, let's do it. What's one of the wackiest things?
I wrote this down.
Yeah,
this is really crazy. So when I was living in Hollywood, I was training at a gym, and there was a guy there that was a former Olympic coach with one of the gymnasts, like Olga Korb. Somebody he was Serbian or something, but he was a former Olympic coach, and he would be there when I was with my trainer, and he was my buddy, and I'd talk to him, and he was a really nice guy. Well, I was pitching a TV idea to one of the big production studios on Sunset Boulevard in Hollywood, which was a spinoff from CosmiKids. It was CosmiKids TV.
Nice.
And growing up in my life, anytime I see a cartwheel, I think of it's like a sign from the universe that it's something great, something wonderful, something magical. So if I'm walking on the beach and I see a little girl doing a cartwheel or something, I think, uh-oh, something good's coming. So I thought to myself, I went over to this coach and I said, I've got a big meeting coming up and I want to do a cartwheel because I think it's going to go really well. And
I love this.
and I want to do a cartwheel in the lobby of this hotel for production studios on Sunset Boulevard when my meeting goes really well. So for the next like 3 weeks, he trained me to do cartwheel. I mean, because, I haven't done a cartwheel since I was a cheerleader. And, I'm a little older now, but it was the funniest thing. And then the gym kicked us out because they said, we don't have insurance for this. So we had to go out on the sidewalk and we put the mat out there in the mornings. This is right in Malibu, California. And so this Olympic coach is teaching me how to do a cartwheel. And do you know that I went to that meeting? It went really well. I came downstairs and I said, here, please take a video of me. I'm going to do a cartwheel in the lobby of the Snazzy Hotel. I did a cartwheel and I got it on camera.
Oh, that's so brilliant. Judy, next time I come to Santa Monica, we are cartwheeling on the beach together.
I don't know if I can still do it, but I'll do my best. I'm sure you could do it.
I think we can do it together. I think that's a commitment that we're both going to make.
Isn't that funny?
That's beautiful. I love that.
So amazing. That's the
wackiest thing. What about
it's pretty wild too.
That's pretty wild.
I think wild was, in retrospect, it was pretty wild. And I was just so terribly lonely. The wildest thing I've done or the wackiest is moving to California. I didn't know anyone out here.
Wow.
Because I led a very social life in Pittsburgh and I lived there all my life and I had friends and wonderful. And I was so lonely.
How old were you, Judy, when you moved?
Probably like in my because I came home for my 50th birthday. So it was probably like in my mid-40s.
Yeah, that's a really challenging age to move, isn't it? Because you have got your friendship groups well established.
Absolutely. And I was jumping into the unknown and I thought to myself, what the hell did I do? Because I would be so lonely. I was living at La Costa Resort in this little cabana. It was like a one-room thing. And I thought, what did I do? What was I thinking to come out here on my own? I know no one. I had no job. And that's when I went up to the Chopra Center. But you see how that just catapulted into. But that was a pretty wild thing that I don't know that I really thought it through. But maybe it wasn't meant to be thought through.
No,
maybe
exactly.
It was meant to just follow your heart.
Exactly. And now Santa Monica's home for you, right? You have an incredible community there.
I sure do. And I don't, it's not a large community, but it's a really, I call them my family. They're my dearest friends and family members, of which, of course, Deb is a part of, and Leon. And there's probably another 10 people that are here. So I love it here. California is my home. It's going through a little bit of a challenge now with the fires and the devastation that's happened in the Palisades, which is really close to me. So.
Oh, that's really devastating. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear and to see all of that devastation. Was plastered all over.
In fact, I'm going to work. I'm going to work for the Red Cross next week to help them with the efforts to help the people that are there. So I'm excited to be there, but I haven't seen it since it's in its current state, and I know it's going to be a challenge to be there. But I'm happy in my heart to be there.
Yeah, sending healing to everyone who's been affected by that. That's really devastating. So that was a wild thing for you to do, to move to California. And why? Last question, Judy. What makes humans wonderful?
Wow, that's a beautiful question. I think there's a wonderment in one's ability to laugh at themselves. And I find that humans can laugh at themselves. Most humans that I know, and that's what's drives our comedians. We always see when we see someone that's a really a celebrated individual, if they can laugh at themselves, it's really heartwarming. So I I think it's the ability to have a good laugh at your own expense.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And it brings a lightness to our lives, doesn't it? It takes us out of the attempt to be, to do, to have, and it's just about being present, really. It's being able to do that. Would you say that? That's kind of, that brings
We
about
come back to that
sort of
being
behavior.
present. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Incredible. Thank you. Thank you from my heart, from humanity's heart. Thank you for raising the vibration of our planet by, really being committed to your cause, your purpose, your big blue bus experience. You didn't run away from it, unlike your psychiatrist. You kept on running. You stuck with it. And because you did, so many of us can be thankful and grateful for you having done that. And it hasn't even played out yet. There's already been such a huge impact, but there's still so much more impact to come from that and from your dedication of what you've already done, let alone what you're about to do. So, yeah, thank you for being that beautiful, bright light in our lives, and for being so humble and caring and empathetic and truly embracing of people's ways of being and people's frequencies. You are a master at sensing, matching, and honoring people's frequencies. So you live and breathe your work, which is just incredible. Thank you.
Thank you, Janine.
Wow, what an incredible journey that was with Judy. How great was that? From Judy's deep passion for reimagining education to her spontaneous spiritual awakening, that I really adored and loved, and so glad that she shared that with us. Her wild Hollywood adventures. Judy's life is a testament to following intuition, embracing curiosity, and she's got love at the core, and for good reason. She shared so much wisdom on frequency-based education, the power of presence in parenting, that's missing for a lot of us at the moment, isn't it? And how truly seeing and honouring a child's energy can absolutely transform the way they learn and grow. If you'd like to dive deeper into Judy's work, check out the show notes. I've included all of her links to Wow Learning Lab, CosmiKids, her podcast, Our Future Is Now. Check those out. She is a brilliant mind. We need to digest what she's got to offer. And as Judy says and lives by, open minds, pure potential. Because life isn't about following a set path. It's about staying open. It's about seeing the signs and following them, even if they come in the form of Ernest Hemingway lookalikes or big blue buses. Jump aboard and embrace the adventure. A huge thank you, Judy, for sharing your wisdom, your warmth, and your wackiness with us today. Your energy is truly a gift to the world. Thank you. Thanks for tuning in to Wild, Wacky, Wonderful Humans. If you had fun, share it with someone just as wild and wonderful as you. Stay wild, stay wonderful, stay wacky, and I'll catch you next time.